Jealousy does not discriminate.
Some of us, it does hit the body first, and for some of us, it's more an emotional response.
Jealousy is absolutely not a verdict. It's an opportunity.
Kia ora, haere mai, welcome listeners. We are here as part of the Love Better campaign. Love never stops learning. Today we are going to be talking about jealousy. My name is Molly. I'm here from Nest. We travel all over Aotearoa. We talk to rangatahi about health and well-being and sexual violence prevention. And I'm joined by the lovely Matt Brown from She Is Not Your Rehab.
Talofa lava, Molly. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to diving into this kōrero.
Yeah, me too. So we're here to unpack jealousy. And I think there's a little bit of maybe shame and embarrassment around this emotion sometimes, but we know that it's super normal. Most of us will have experiences with it, especially in the relationships that really matter to us. We're going to be unpacking it in terms of how it comes up in romantic relationships today. I think what we're really interested in is not judging these emotions, but talking about, what we do with them, because how we respond and how we manage them is really important. It means that we're not turning them into, hurtful behaviors and things like that, which is, why this kaupapa is so important.
Look, I 100% believe jealousy will show up in every relationship. I believe it's often a clue for what you value and what you also fear. Both things can coexist, but I think it's a normal emotion, and we have to start normalizing the conversations around these emotions, because often it's doomed as, the relationship's doomed if people have jealousy. And so I think we have to normalize this very emotion that is completely human.
Totally. I think, jealousy gets a bad rap, but it's signaling something underneath, signaling what's important to us. And it's a signaling that we need to be turning inwards and figuring out what's going on so that it can become an opportunity for building more trust and building more connection instead of the opposite. I think young people get a bit confused sometimes and think that it's pushing us apart when it could be bringing us closer together. Yeah,
100%. I definitely think it's an invitation, like you said, for us to look within and navigate these human things that we will experience. And I think as a young person, man, we have so many things that are going through our bodies at such a young age. As our body develops, as these relationships grow and we meet different people, like this is just going to be one of those things that we will come across.
Totally. And for young people as well who are figuring these things out for the first time, among this, really intense time of upheaval in our lives, I know, unpacking jealousy is something that we see across, everyone's talking about it, everyone's experiencing it. And I think it's really awesome that we're here to unpack it a little bit more so that, we can figure out ways to make it work for us rather than against us.
100%. And I think it's important to note that jealousy is absolutely not a verdict. It's an opportunity for us to do better, learn better, be better, and ultimately love better.
It's quite vulnerable, I feel like.
It is vulnerable.
Connecting with someone makes us vulnerable. But there's so much strength in vulnerability. I think that's something that we also get wrong about jealousy, is that it doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us, like you say, it doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. It means that, we really care about someone. And I think something that you said perhaps in your infamous TED talk that I adore so much is about courage to be known, and courage to be seen, and to be loved is to be seen. And we've got to be able to communicate, to our partners around what we're feeling.
Yeah. And that's just the way when you fall in love or you get into a romantic relationship, the heart of that is to really want to be seen, and I suppose when you're in the mix of feelings and emotions and love and aroha and all these things and with your partner, the thought of having that taken away or their ability to see someone else or give someone else their attention is very scary.
It is scary.
Because love is scary. Love is vulnerable.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's when we start looking beneath jealousy, which is, it's touching on feelings of insecurity, fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. So it's really this secondary piece to the puzzle. So it's, like we were saying before, it's a signal to look at what's actually going on for me here. And I think that's a really good pathway into helping it work for us and helping us build trust in our relationships. It can be really confusing. There's so much to understand about it and perhaps not too much information out there.
Yeah, look, it's a human emotion. Jealousy does not discriminate. I've been a barber to men, young boys for close to 2 decades. And even in my experience, seeing the men who have, gifted me their times in my barber chair, I still see a lot of men who struggle with jealousy, And so, yep, even emotionally aware men, people face this emotion.
Totally. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper and look at, the roots of jealousy, like where it comes from, why it hits so hard. Let's start by thinking about, how would you describe jealousy?
In my personal experience, I have felt jealousy in my body, feeling like knotty. My stomach is turning, hot face, sweaty palms, heavy breathing, fast breathing. That's what if I was to give a description physically, that's what it has felt like.
Yeah, that is something I hear a lot across the classrooms that I have been in as well. Some of us, it does hit the body first. For some of us, it comes into our brain and it becomes a bit of a spirally thoughts kind of piece. And for some of us, it's more an emotional response. It'd be really interesting to see what young people are saying about what jealousy feels like for them.
I was in a long distance relationship, but we would watch each other live our lives on like Instagram and on, Facebook at the time.
You learn as you go.
If you date someone for more than 3 days, you're going to have a jealousy that arises.
People act maybe overly jealous sometimes because of things that have happened in the past.
There was still that sort of underlying fear that, am I funny enough? Are we, going on enough dates?
Young people are so wise. And it's beautiful. It's such a, being human and experiencing all these feelings of loss and fear and disappointment or feeling inadequate or not good enough, that's part of life, and we have to be messy and fall and stumble and get back up. This is all part of our learning and our evolution as a person, as a human, as one day a family man or a father, and I think to normalize these conversations, the corridor around jealousy or just these hard emotions that society has deemed as hard or wrong is completely a myth.
That shame as well, it silences us and it stops us from being able to have these conversations. And having these conversations, like you say, it's about normalizing these feelings. It gives us the language and the tools to be able to name it, which gives it less power, and then also to know what to do next, how to unpack it, how to move forward, how to build, healthier behaviors and healthier ways of being in relationships and healthier ways of finding ourselves.
And healthier ways how to manage the emotions, because it's not fatal. I think we, especially as young people, we shouldn't catastrophize these emotions like jealousy. It's normal. Yeah,
that's a good point, actually. Catastrophizing, I think, do you think that maybe makes the feelings bigger than what they are? Yeah? Okay.
Well, like what you're saying, it could be a past trauma or a past hurt or, the feeling of being abandoned. So now you're obviously putting all your energy and love and hope into this new relationship because, she sees you, he sees you. You don't want to ever feel what you felt before, and so of course I'm going to put my all into this relationship. It's scary, it's vulnerable, it's scary, but it's this is life.
This is life, this is love. Yeah, no, it really makes sense that these past experiences, they color how jealousy shows up for us. And it can oftentimes start really, really small and kind of escalate over time. And then often I find, people might see that these behaviors or these feelings get easier and easier to access over time as well. We sort of set up these pathways in our brain. And over time it gets easier to jump to that reactivity rather than, meeting ourselves where we're at, taking a pause, finding compassion. But I think something that I really love about your kaupapa as well is you talk about how what's happened for us in our past, it's not our fault, but healing and finding the right way forward is absolutely our responsibility.
100%.
So not letting, past experiences let us off the hook in some ways. It is our responsibility to, to manage what's going on for us, especially in ways that, aren't going to harm our partners and ourselves moving forward.
Yeah, and sometimes like I find that a lot, when someone reacts, seeing their partner text someone else or in a group chat with someone else, not meaning any harm, but then our reaction is so catastrophized and we act shocked, like, oh, where did that come from? Sometimes jealousy does hit us like that, and sometimes it creeps up slowly. Both can coexist. And I think if we don't deal with it, the root cause of why we're jealous, what's the hurt feeling that I'm feeling here, or what's the wound here that I haven't dealt with, And so it's important for us to always see these emotions like jealousy as an invitation to look within, as we were saying before. But yeah, often more than not, like, these creep up because we've suppressed these feelings down. We don't want to talk about them. We don't know how to talk about them. Society doesn't make it easy for us to talk about them. And so, yeah, I often find with a lot of guys that I work with, they don't think they're jealous, but not talking about these feelings that they do feel, as men and boys do feel things, often builds up. And these end up looking like resentment, coldness, and then we shut down, and then our partners are wondering, what did I do wrong?
I think young people struggle with what language to use, and also in these situations where they're with their peers and we're having these conversations, I see the dynamics between them in terms of, I don't want to admit to, having this struggle because I don't want it to make it seem like I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm weak, or that I, have mucked up in some way, just so we can explain, how normal it is. And
it's so important to like put language to the feelings that we feel.
Totally.
I grew up in an era where, especially in the 80s and 90s, I sound old now, but, as a young boy trying to navigate these emotions, like, I wish adults told me and talked to me about these emotions,
Totally.
I had to navigate these myself. And so just hearing young people in that video talk about jealousy the way they're talking about it, it's fear, it's loss, it's, abandonment or grief. It's so important to name and label things.
And nobody is born knowing, how to manage these things, or having that language. It is something that we learn over time, that we are taught, not just by, role models and whānau, but also it's what we see in the media. It's what we hear at school from our mates. And, a lot of what we're seeing, especially in the media, is really sending the wrong message and going completely against what we're trying to, share with our young people around better ways to handle jealousy. So,
yeah, and how cool is it to talk about these things?
Yeah.
Like, I find so much pride in being able to talk to my children, my adult child who's 22, my young son who is 10 years old, about these emotions, because he feels them. And I think we as adults, if we can't talk about our own feelings and our own emotions, we're denying our children, the opportunity to lean into these amazing, beautiful feelings that we as humans, as a society, will feel no matter what we go through.
So let's go a layer deeper now. So we've talked a little bit about, what jealousy might look like, but I'd love to talk a little bit more about why jealousy comes up for us. So we've talked a little bit about how, it often plays on our insecurities, what's going on for us, underneath jealousy is really important to be thinking about. If we go a little bit deeper, what's that looking like in your work with the young people that you're working with?
Great question. What does it look like going deeper? I think, we talked about it as an invitation to look within and, try and unpack some of those underlying emotions. So for a lot of the guys that I've worked with, one thing men, especially working in a barbershop, one emotion that men refuse to feel or sit with is feeling inadequate, feeling useless, I'm not good enough. Where does it stem from? Because no guy, we live in a society where men are encouraged to be fixers, to be solution-based. And when that doesn't go how it should go in our relationships, those feelings of feeling inadequate end up rising up to the surface. And I just feel like it's an opportunity for us to do the work within. Like, I've never met a man or a boy who wakes up one day wanting to terrify his household, wanting to abuse his partner, wanting to terrify his children. We just haven't been taught how to normalize these feelings of feeling inadequate.
And with our young people as well, there's so much going on at this time of their lives, including what's going on in their brains.
Mm.
So we know that the sort of thinking, logical, taking time to understand risks and consequences part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex, and it doesn't develop until much later, sort of in our mid-20s, late 20s. When these feelings come to us, things like jealousy, which I guess sometimes feels a bit like a threat. It's a threat to our relationships. It's a threat to our connection. It's a threat to our self-worth. It hits the part of our brain, it hits the amygdala, which is our sort of emotional part of the brain. It triggers like a stress response. So think fight, flight, fawn, freeze responses. And then that triggers some other really important processes and systems in our brain, like our limbic system, which is sort of our dopamine reward pathways. And so it pushes us into this, it's a push and pull between wanting to protect ourselves, but also wanting to defend ourselves, so acting aggressively or acting defensively. And the amygdala is one of the first parts of the brain to really mature. So we've got these young people who, puberty can start anywhere between 8 and 9 and 16, right? So at 16 and on, we're still kind of dealing with pubertal change, which is, hormones are racing around our bodies, and
a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really tricky time. And then on top of that, emotional regulation is a huge struggle for so many. And I think that's a really big piece of the puzzle when it comes to understanding and being able to manage jealousy, because it's this big mess, this big volcano of emotions. Being aware of what's happening in our brains and our bodies is a really good starting point, because it's that signaling, and then it's telling us what to do next. It's telling us to pause.
Yes.
It's telling us to meet our feelings with compassion and curiosity.
Yes, curiosity is so important.
Totally. Instead of that reactivity, right, which is often, our learned response. That's what we've seen from people around us or seen in the media. It's that explosive, response that's we know is super unhelpful, can lead to some really harmful behaviors.
In my work, I've seen the most powerful people in the room are those who can manage and master their emotions, not let the emotions master them. How beautiful is it? Because this is a journey, like we said, this is a hikoi for our entire lives, learning to regulate our emotions, how to manage them. And I think how beautiful is it when you can, name those feelings, sit with those feelings, pause, breathe, and not let it overwhelm you to the point where feelings like jealousy are now trampling on the person's mana that you care about.
Exactly.
Anytime your emotions overshadow, your love, your genuine aroha for the person that you care about.
That's a really important one, for sure. Doing this inner work is really important, not just for the people in our lives, but it's important for us too, because we want to be learning about ourselves. We want to be growing into the people that we want to be. And just because we didn't have the role models or the people around us that showed us the behavior that's healthy and, that's going to be moving us in the right direction, we can be that person for ourselves.
Yeah. And you have to be, I think, in the neighborhood that I grew up, we were waiting for people, teachers, coaches to come rescue us, especially from homes of violence that I grew up in. If you know my story, I grew up in a very traumatic upbringing. I would compare it to the infamous movie Once We're Warriors. But I knew at a young age, waiting around for people to come rescue me, I would be waiting around forever. And so I had to look within, do the work. And, I remember being 15 years old, and I remember the pushback I received from my own homies, my boys in my neighborhood, especially the Pacifica community, which this topic was very taboo. And it's still taboo today. Yeah. But I remember the pushback, boys coming up to me, bro, we don't talk about this stuff. You're bringing shame and dishonor to our families and our culture. But I just remember feeling, well, what else can I do? The feelings that I'm having to sit with, having to navigate myself, they were so overwhelmingly hard. It was either speak up or take my own life. And I'm so glad I've spoken up, and I still speak up today, because in speaking up, I've learned that those feelings, those emotions, that loneliness that I felt, so many of our young people are still navigating those feelings today.
Totally.
And I think it's super important that when you do have the courage to look within, take ownership of your healing, take responsibility of your emotions. Like, you are such a better human and adult. And you know what? Today as a man, a lot of those friends who came and challenged me and questioned my speech, my kōrero, have all come back asking for help, you know? And I never ever went on this path of wanting to be this person that helps other men, but I think having the courage to take ownership of my emotions and feelings at a young age gave me a better platform to be the father I am today, to be the husband I am today. And so it's possible to navigate those hard feelings, and it's completely normal.
So jealousy is this completely human, normal feeling. We've established that. But, you know, it's our behavior in response to that feeling that really, you know, can be something that leads us to more connection or intimacy, or can lead us to some unhealthy behaviors, or even to, you know, abusive behaviors that can lead to harm. You know, it's the feeling is not the problem, right? It's when the feeling starts driving the car.
Yes.
So I would love to have a look at what young people are saying about, you know, how, you know, there's a difference between, you know, feeling jealous and then acting on that jealousy.
It would come out in anger towards her. And I'd be like, damn, it's not fair to feel that way. We all have our own lives and our own experiences.
There's something so scary about being in love. There's something so scary about being loved. So I think it's natural to try to, I don't know, to try to protect that overwhelming nature of our feelings and learn how to communicate the way you feel.
With love involved, you're like so blinded. Your decision making is different. That's not always healthy.
I was 19 at the time, and it was very like immature of me just to like post about it and making it feel very shady in some ways. I should have talked to him more, not villainized him.
I cannot undervalue how important it is to talk to your partner about those feelings. Keeping it quiet will just make you resent yourself and maybe your partner.
I had a friend whose boyfriend, he'd say like, that skirt's too short, show me your outfit before you leave the house. And that's when you're like, okay, this is a red flag. We either talk this out or you rethink the relationship. There's a very fine line between feeling insecure and wanting to build trust and have those conversations and being controlled by someone.
So interesting, you know, how our young people pick up on that fine line between, you know, maybe being protective, which I feel like is around, you know, I care about you and your well-being, you know, I want to help protect that, versus that possessiveness piece, right? Which is, I need you to do this so that I can feel safe and that I can feel in control. And I think that's a really good way to kind of be able to figure out whether your jealousy is falling into that more harmful space, rather than that constructive space. You know, am I wanting to control the situation? Am I wanting to, I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, love shouldn't shrink somebody else's world, right?
100%. And it shouldn't control. I think those harmful behaviors end up looking like possessiveness, stalking, checking her phone, checking their phone, like all those things. And I think when you get to that point, you really need to talk to someone, talk to your partner, because I think love is connection, you know, and connection looks like vulnerable conversations, courageous conversations.
You know, do you have the right to decide who your partner can and cannot speak to? You know, and it was really hard to unpack that, because, you know, they were sort of saying, well, you know, if I share my feelings on this, then yes, this person needs to do what I say. But I think there's boundaries and controlling behaviors are very different, and they make us feel different too. If your partner is being vulnerable and sharing how they feel, there's a pathway forward together. Whereas if it's I need you to do this, or if it's an accusing or a blaming, or, you know, then it's, you know, that's just a recipe for disaster, really.
100%. I mean, a story that comes to mind right now is one of my clients. He was young. He just finished high school and he wanted to be a policeman, you know, after school. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, I won't go into detail, but he didn't make the police. But his partner, and they had been dating since high school, I think 14, they've been together. His partner, she was excelling in her career and she was getting all these opportunities. And he just started feeling, you know, these emotions of inadequacy took over, but he just felt jealous. To him, it was just jealous. And so he started checking her phone, who's she hanging out with at work. And so we started unpacking this, as his barber. And I started asking him questions, what do you think is the root feelings that you're feeling? Or what are the root emotions of the underlying emotions that you're actually feeling here? He just thought, I'm just jealous. I'm just, who's she talking to? Who's she hanging out with? And I said, let's just go deeper, bro. What else is there? What else is there? And we got down to the underlying emotions was he just felt that he wasn't good enough for the relationship. She was earning good money. Her career was popping off and he was doing a job that he didn't like, so he thought that he felt he wasn't bringing the best of himself to this relationship. But the behaviors ended up turning into looking like checking her phone,
right,
asking her, ringing up her while she was at work,
The sort of more harmful route is the being vulnerable, is the figuring out the root issues, is the doing the inner work. And that's not necessarily something that you need to do with your partner, which is why it's so important that we're not isolated in our relationships as well. The importance of not, when you're entering into a relationship, letting those other relationships fall away, because we need them for support.
And I always tell young people, it's not cool to be controlling and possessive of your partner. What's actually cool is you being able to express your emotions in a healthy way and communicate to your partner.
And build trust, because these behaviors, they damage trust. They damage our connections. They're doing the opposite of what we're trying to achieve.
They're doing the opposite of what you actually want, which is love, connection, being acknowledged and being seen. All of us want to be seen,
Next steps would be to think about accountability. That's a really big piece of this as well, especially if we are noticing that those thoughts are trying to take the wheel. And, we, at the end of the day, we're not victim to our feelings. We are in control. That's why we do that inner work. That's why we think about emotional regulation. But, how else do you see accountability coming up for you with the conversations you've been having?
I think for me, it's important to find your village, find those trusted friends that you can talk to about your feelings and emotions. It's not weak. I come from a neighborhood where, gangs are prevalent, and so I always tell men, the most gangster thing you can do is heal. The most gangster thing you can do is own your emotions, own your feelings. Emotional literacy is so gangster, and it's so attractive.
Totally.
It's super attractive, being aware of your own feelings. And so accountability looks like, talking to people that you trust. If you don't have those close people that you can trust, reach out to professionals. I think there is more people in our society, especially in this day and age, who want to help than those who don't want to help.
Totally. And I think accountability doesn't look like shame and blame and turning inwards in a negative way in terms of what the heck is wrong with me? I'm this terrible person who does these terrible things and has these terrible feelings, right? It's that meeting those feelings with compassion, of course I feel this way. I need to be safe to be able to share, what I'm going through. And then make better choices moving forward, right? It's about getting educated, getting informed, speaking to your village, getting support, and then, turning jealousy into an insight. I'd love to have a look at what young people are saying about how they've done some of that work and how they're making jealousy work for them.
Jealousy has definitely taught me that I'm an insecure person.
What can I do to settle this fear of being abandoned within myself? What's my responsibility to take care of my brain with? I've learned a lot about myself. I can overthink so much.
The biggest thing I learned was that I don't think I had as strong of a sense of self as I thought I did. You really have to be your own best friend.
Sometimes the solution is also to work on yourself.
Totally.
Sometimes the solution is working on yourself. I think majority of the solution is working on yourself. Because I think when you are working on yourself and doing the work within yourself, you bring to the relationship a much better version. And And when two people can both work on themselves, you're bringing again the best part of yourself to a relationship.
Totally. Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about how, a lot of the way that we react to these feelings and navigate romantic relationships comes from perhaps like our attachment style. And that's something that we learn from a very young age that we continuously, are evolving and embedding and trying to figure out as we get older, especially when we're entering these, this time of our life where we might be exploring romantic relationships. Someone with an insecure attachment is going to, jealousy really lights up a lot of that pain and that, those feelings of confusion and fear, and with a secure attachment style, which is something that, we should all be working towards, we approach, these feelings with these core values and beliefs of, I'm worthy of love, I'm worthy of being heard, I deserve to be safe in my relationship. And, understanding that, I feel like it's just like such a crucial piece to the puzzle. Yeah. And, we see that, in what these young people are saying. It's, I realized that I'm an overthinker, figuring these things out about yourself. They make, grappling with things like jealousy that much more straightforward.
So get curious with it. Maybe it's an invitation, as we mentioned before. Maybe it's an invitation for us to trace back, where did this come from? Where did I first start feeling fear or inadequate or useless? And it's an invitation for you to be better, to love better, to do better.
Yeah, totally. And it's so beautiful, when we do reach that place of, this situation has come my way. I've put these things in place to help me take a step back and pause and react with compassion and curiosity, and then be able to move forward and communicate my needs to my partner. Whatever your process is around emotional regulation and how you navigate jealousy, it's your responsibility, right? It's not your partner's responsibility.
100%.
It's coming from you. It's something that you need to work through. And, there's communicating with our partners is part of that. But at the core of it, it's an us problem that needs to be sorted, on this side first, right?
Absolutely. Like, our partners can be our greatest cheerleaders and, cheering us on and on the sideline in the arena, but no one can do the work for you more than yourself. Totally. Like, your childhood trauma is not your fault. Whatever happened to you is not your fault as a child, as a young kid. But as you grow old and as you develop and as you evolve, your healing is absolutely your responsibility. Your healing is absolutely your responsibility. Like, we can't allow our partners can't be our lifeline, and that's where the village concept is important. Totally. We need each other. We need to lean on our friends when things do get hard, because life is life. Relationships do get hard. I have never ever conversed with a person, a man, especially in the barber chair, where relationships haven't been hard. These things are messy, they're gritty, they're emotional, and we need to rely on our village. We can't give all responsibility to our partners. It is absolutely our responsibility to do the work.
Totally. So jealousy is signaling all these important things for us. And for people who are, wanting to do this inner work and wanting to do the right things, we want to be able to sort of set them up with some practical tools that they can take away from them to make this korero really impactful, I feel like. So what are your top 5 tips for rangatahi who are dealing with feelings of jealousy?
My top 5 tips for rangatahi would be to pause and reflect. Emotions are not fatal. Breathe deeply in and out for a couple of minutes. Reflect by journaling. Write your emotions down on paper or on your phone, and then communicate that to someone who is safe, someone that you care about, someone that you trust, and then move your body. Go for a walk outside, go to the gym, go for a hike, just move your body.
I think something that I really like to share with the young people is the importance of stepping away from devices, all those things, and then connecting with nature, connecting with Aotearoa. Like, we live in this beautiful country. Getting that fresh air, seeing a beautiful body of water, seeing the beautiful bush, that can be incredibly centering and rejuvenating. And again, it gives us some quiet and some space to figure out what's going on for us, because it takes time, and we don't have to have all the answers right away. Making peace with the fact that like you say, it's messy. But, you know, meeting those feelings with compassion and not as a critic, but as an observer, you know, and that really helps, just letting them pass us by as well. The things that don't serve us, we can let them go. And then the things that really matter, that are really important, we can then, you know, take forward into what's next, which is probably, having a conversation with someone. And it doesn't have to be your partner right away either. What would we tell ourselves about, you know, jealousy and how to manage it? What's something that you would, you know, if you could speak to him right now, what would you tell him?
If I could speak to little Matt right now, I would tell him that feeling jealous does not make you a bad person. It makes you human. I would tell him to be kinder to himself, to work on his self-worth. So when you go into relationships, your relationship doesn't become your whole world. Totally. So working on your self-worth, because you matter. You matter. And when you know that you matter, the person that you fall in love with will also know that you matter, because you know that you matter. So what about you, sis? Like, what would you say to your younger self?
Well, I think number one, you know, taking that space and taking that time. We talked a lot about that today, that, you know, not jumping into what do I need to do about this, but actually sitting in my feelings. That's something that I'm still working on at the moment. I would definitely share that with my younger self. I would talk about, you know, that it's okay to be vulnerable, that there's strength in that softness, that there's strength in, you know, being open and honest, and that, you know, that I have a voice, you know, that my power and my mana is important. And again, I think a way to access that is through being vulnerable. For
Beautiful.
sure.
And I think it's important to note that you're not going to always get it right. Like, part of being human or evolving and growth is getting it wrong sometimes, is being messy. But I think if you stay loyal to truth, if you stay loyal to your own growth, if you stay loyal to becoming a person who is safe, who is kind, who people want to be around. You know, I always, doing this work for many years now, having the self-awareness, I always ask myself the question, you know, what is the experience that you want people to have of you? Especially as a father, especially as a papa, what's the experience I want my children to have of their father? You know, and I want my kids to see dad gets it wrong. You know, dad does mess up. Dad does have these overwhelming emotions that he too, our Superman, our dad, our hero is human. He also gets it wrong. He also feels these things. And I think when you allow yourself to feel these emotions and take full responsibility that these emotions are mine, my behavior is mine, my reaction is mine, like, you're giving permission for other people, especially our young people, our children, to have permission to feel these feelings. It's completely normal.
Totally. And I think that just wraps up so beautifully, which is, you know, yes, these feelings that come our way are totally normal. We don't always have control over how our emotional mind, you know, reacts to a situation. But what we do have control over, what we do have responsibility for is, you know, what we do with these feelings, how we, you know, what we do with our bodies, what we do with our words, our behaviors. That's within our control.
Yes.
Yeah. For sure.
And those tools that, you know, those tips that I offered was, you know, breathing, pausing. When you have those all in line, because these emotions are going to come, it's all part of being human. You can, you know, gravitate towards those tools, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, for me personally, before I even dated my wife, we were best friends for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So I was best friends with Sarah, my wife. And I remember she started putting herself out there, like, you know, oh, I'm thinking about dating. You know, I was like, oh, cool. You know, we're just friends. We were very boundaried in that manner. And as my wife started dating and, you know, exploring, these emotions started coming over me. Oh, what's this feeling I'm feeling? And as I sat and paused, I recognized this emotion was jealous. Why was I jealous? And I had to do a deep dive into it. Was it because this person that I love so much, I knew, you know, in loving her, I wanted her to be happy, but could I see my life without her? Because in her being happiness, I knew that the dynamics between our relationship would change if she found a partner that was worthy of loving her, that would, you know, be the person for her that I couldn't be at the time. And as I sat with those hard emotions, I thought to myself, man, this is what really jealousy feels like. Unpacking it. Oh, I don't want to be alone. I can't see my life without this beautiful woman that I love and adore now. And so am I willing to be courageous and lean into these emotions and be vulnerable with this person? And once I sat with those feelings, I then found the courage to think, okay, I want to be in a relationship with you, in a romantic relationship with you. And so that's when I asked her to be my girlfriend.
Oh, wow. So jealousy brings us together, really.
And that's it. It's a beautiful thing if we use it and be curious about those emotions. You know, it can bring so many beautiful things about ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So our key takeaway is really that jealousy is the super normal human emotion, and it's what we do with it that matters. If anyone listening needed any support, needing help with unpacking jealousy, or if this brought up some heavy emotions for you, asking for help is totally okay. Text 234 Love Better, or you can reach out to Youthline on Instagram. And thank you so much to Matt for joining us as well.
Thank you, Molly, for having me. And I just want to end on a note to all our beautiful rangatahi out there across the motu. Jealousy does not make you a bad person. It makes you human. And how you respond really is what builds love and connection. And to all the lads, the young men out there, if you are serious about doing the work, we have a free available tool that's available here in Aotearoa. Just go onto your web browser and type in innerboy.nz.